Donald Trump gets a superseding indictment from Jack Smith. Isn't that convenient? The day after Hunter's plea deal falls apart, Jack Smith decides to indict Joe Biden's top political opponent. Very, very interesting, isn't it? Now, we're going to go through both indictments, both the original indictment and the superseding indictment, which just means the indictment that's going to replace the original indictment. But let's get a little bit of background before we see some reaction from DNI Ratcliffe, Ron DeSantis, who has some comments on the J6 indictment that is coming up in parallel to this one, and reaction from Schiff and Christie. This is the side-by-side. This is the original indictment filed June 8th. This is the new filed superseding indictment, July 27th. And as we'll scroll through most of this, you'll see that the paragraphs match up. All right, paragraph 1, Donald Trump. Looks like the margins are a little off on the second document, so it's a little bit further down. And then we get to 6. They talk about these two occasions. Now, one of these paragraphs was referencing this Bedminster charge. The Bedminster charge was the one where they said he was flashing this Iran document to somebody outside of Florida. And we were saying, well, that's weird. This is a jurisdictional problem. Why are they charging him for something in Florida when the crime happened in Bedminster, New Jersey? That's a separate jurisdiction. They should have filed it there. But we're going to learn that they're saying that the document was ultimately contained at Mar-a-Lago. So we still go through this. Looks like it's very much the same. Paragraph 7s match up. Now, then we get to a difference. Now, you'll see this is where in paragraph 10, we're going to get an addition. Paragraph 10 tells us the following. So beginning in January, Carlos de Oliveira, that's the new defendant, so we'll call him D3, was employed as the property manager at Mar-a-Lago. Prior to holding the position of property manager, he was employed as a valet at Mar-a-Lago. Now, the reason why we're fast forwarding through the rest of this indictment is because we already read this one. We already read through the full thing on the left previously. And so they tell us now about Trump's co-conspirators, and they're adding in a little bit here, right? That's the paragraph 10. Then we get basically back on track. You see, we're basically just one paragraph behind. The rest of the document is very much the same. Now, this is where we get to a big difference. Okay, here on page 26 of both indictments. Now we see on the original indictment, the court-authorized search of the Mar-a-Lago club. We've got a whole new section here. The attempt to delete the security camera footage. So everything on this side is now going to be inserted before the counts. So basically these 3.5 pages are all new. They tell us this is about the attempt to delete the security camera footage at Mar-a-Lago. So on June 3rd, when FBI agents were at the Mar-a-Lago club to collect documents from Trump's lawyer, the agents observed that there were surveillance cameras. On June 22nd, a couple weeks later, the DOJ emailed Trump lawyer a draft grand jury subpoena requiring the production of camera footage on the ground floor where the storage was located. Then, after they say the email came in from the DOJ, then Trump called de Oliveira, and they spoke for 24 minutes at the following day later that night. Then on Friday, the following day, DOJ emailed the attorney for Trump's business org, which required the production of the footage. Hey, we've got this permission now, grand jury subpoena. Give us the documents. That same day, they say Trump's lawyer spoke with Trump by phone. He said, hey, we got this subpoena from the DOJ for the security footage. At 3:44, Nauda received a text message from a coworker, another Trump employee 3, indicating that Trump wanted to see Nauda. Now, we don't know who this is, right? Who is this person? Is this the person inside? We've always been asking, who is the mole at Mar-a-Lago? Always questioning the evidence, indicating that Trump wanted to see Nauda. Less than 2 hours later, Nauda, who was scheduled to travel with Trump to Illinois the next day, changed his travel schedule, began to make arrangements to go to Palm Beach instead. Nauda provided inconsistent explanations to colleagues for a sudden travel to Florida. At 7:14 on June 24th, he texted one person that he would not be traveling with Trump the next day. He had a family emergency, and he used the shushing emojis. At 9:48 that night, he texted a Secret Service agent that I got to check on a family member in Florida. He arrived in Florida June 25th. He texted the same Secret Service agent that he was there working. Now, around the same time that Nauda was making travel plans to go to Florida, Nauda and de Oliveira contacted Trump employee 4. All right, so we've got TE3 and TE4, who was the Director of Information Technology, IT guy. At 5:02, Nauda sent text messages to the IT guy. He says, hey, bro, you around this weekend? Nauda texts Oliveira, says, hey, brother, you working today? De Oliveira responded, yeah, I just left. Nauda then called de Oliveira, and they spoke for 2 minutes. So Nauda sends to employee, then Nauda texts Oliveira. So like Nauda's going to get a crew. Then employee 4 said, I'm local, entertaining some family that came to visit, but what's up? He said, okay, cool, no biggie, just wanted to see where you were around. Enjoy, bro. De Oliveira then texted Trump employee 4. He says, hey, buddy, how are you? Walter called me now. Said, trying to get in touch with you. I guess he's coming down. I guess he needs you for something. And the employee says, oh, he reached out, didn't say what he wanted. I told him I was local, entertaining some family. He told me no worries. Oh, okay, so they got that cleared out. So Walt is texting some people, are you available? De Oliveira is trying to also help round up the crew. And then the employee is a great team player. He says, hey, Nauta, bro, if you need me, I can get away for a few. Just let me know. Nauta says, hey, sounds good. Thank you. On Saturday, June 25th, Nauta traveled from Bedminster, New Jersey to Palm Beach, Florida. That's where the alleged document was flashed to somebody in that audio recording that we heard. Prior to Nauta's trip to New Jersey, De Oliveira told a valet at the Mar-a-Lago Club, now we've got TE5, Trump employee 5, that Nauta was coming down. De Oliveira asked Trump employee 5 not to tell anyone that Nauta was coming down because Nauta wanted the trip to remain secret. De Oliveira also told employee number 5 that Nauta wanted De Oliveira to talk to employee 4 to see how long the camera footage was stored. That's the IT guy. TE4 is IT. Shortly after arriving to Palm Beach on the evening of June 25th, Nauta went to Mar-a-Lago, met with De Oliveira at 546. The Mar-a-Lago Club, Nauta and De Oliveira went to a security guard booth where surveillance video is displayed on the monitors. They walked with a flashlight through the tunnel where the storage room was located, and they pointed out these surveillance cameras. On Monday, the 27th, De Oliveira walked into the IT office where TE4, the IT guy, was working with another employee at the IT department. De Oliveira requested that the IT guy step away from the office so that they could talk. So pull him out of the office. At 9:49 a.m., Trump employee 4 and De Oliveira left the area of the IT office together and walked through a basement tunnel. De Oliveira took employee 4 to a small room known as an audio closet near the white and gold ballroom. Once inside the audio closet, De Oliveira and the Trump employee 4 had the following exchange. So TE4 is a government witness, IT guy. De Oliveira told Trump employee 4 that their conversation should be private, remain between the two of them. De Oliveira asked Trump employee 4 how many days the server retained the footage. Employee 4 responded, probably 45 days, I believe. De Oliveira also told Trump employee 4 that the boss, which is different than the big guy, wanted the server deleted. Trump employee 4 responded that he did not know how to do that, and that he did not believe that he would have the rights to do that. And Trump employee 4 told De Oliveira that De Oliveira would have reached out to another employee who was a supervisor, and Oliveira insisted that the boss wanted the server deleted and asked, what are we going to do? At 10:14, De Oliveira texted Nauta, who was still in Florida. He says, hey, buddy, are you working today? Oliveira then called Nauta at 10:15, and they spoke for about 1 minute. Later that day, at 1:06, Nauta texted De Oliveira, who was at the Mar-a-Lago Club. He says, on my way to you. Between 1:31 and 1:15, De Oliveira walked through the bushes at the northern edge of the Mar-a-Lago property to meet with Nauta on the adjacent property. Then they walked back to the IT office that they had visited that morning. They walked again through the bushes at the northern edge. Then they met with Nauta at the adjacent property. At 3:55, Trump called De Oliveira. They spoke for 3.5 minutes. What's that phone call? Now, then it looks like we have the actual search warrant request. In July, the FBI then reviewed surveillance video from the club showing the movement of the boxes. Then they executed the search warrant, and here's what they found. Just over 2 weeks after the FBI discovered the documents in the storage room, Nauta called Trump employee 5 and said words to the effect of, someone just wants to make sure Carlos is good. In response, Trump employee 5 told Nauta that De Oliveira was loyal and that De Oliveira would not do anything to affect his relationship with Trump. That same day, at Nauta's request, Trump employee 5 confirmed in a Signal chat group with Nauta and the PAC representative that De Oliveira was loyal. The same day, Trump called De Oliveira and told De Oliveira that Trump would get De Oliveira an attorney. So they want us to infer that Trump is orchestrating the destruction of evidence that's relevant to the subpoena. So they're asking us to infer a lot here. They're saying that this timeline all makes sense because Trump made some phone calls. You know, all is out of context as far as I'm concerned, right? That's my presumption on this one. They don't get the benefit of the doubt. We have the presumption of innocence in this country. So they could easily cherry pick every one of these little things and create this timeline to imply Trump had a mens rea, a mental state, to go and obstruct evidence. But there was apparently no actual obstruction of the evidence as far as I've read in here. And the rest of the documents are just going to basically be the new charges. So let's see where Oliveira's are so we can see what his new charges are. Here we go. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, count 33. They're adding Trump and Carlos de Oliveira. The purpose of the conspiracy was to conceal all this stuff, and that they were attempting to delete the footage to conceal it from the grand jury, suggesting that they move boxes and then delete the footage. The rest of this is basically the same. All right, so for all of the hyperventilating you hear out there, that's basically all it was. It's some phone calls. We don't even have actually any evidence destroyed. We've got apparently a couple phone calls between Trump and Carlos. Don't even know if those are recorded or they're as evidence. A couple new witnesses that might be in this case. So we're relying on third parties, hearsay type of statements to make this case. And it's going to be very interesting to see where it goes. Now, the usual suspects are hyperventilating over this as usual. And Adam Schiff is one of the people who says, this is just incredible. This case is getting stronger by the day, even though I've been censured like a historical figure. I mean, not that many people have been censured in American history. I think only 3. He's one of them. What a loser. But he is now going to take, a lot of joy and excitement in Trump being prosecuted, because that's basically all these people live for.
Well, the evidence was already strong in the original indictment, but in this superseding indictment now you just see how much more evidence the special counsel has. There are evidently cooperating witnesses. There is surveillance footage of some of the figures in this new superseding indictment, including De Oliveira meeting surreptitiously with others, some night meetings, some morning meetings, meetings in an audio cabinet or an audio room, a small audio room to sort of discuss the plot to destroy these surveillance tapes. It just shows what incredible body of evidence the special counsel has, but it also shows just how much consciousness of guilt there is on the part of the president. The overlapping efforts.
We would love to see your phone calls there, Shifty Schiff.
To obstruct the investigation. If, part of it.
We could get his records, his text messages, and come up with whatever story we wanted, right? They've got months of footage of Trump stuff. And the best they've got is a couple people walking around pointing at security cameras that didn't even delete anything.
Which is he had declassified this information, or he had the right to declassify it. If any of that was true, of course, he wouldn't need to go to these extraordinary efforts to destroy evidence. So it is, I think, very powerful again.
And you don't even know that he's destroying evidence. He could be destroying things that are not related. But let's say he did, make some orders and destroy these things. He's well within his right to do stuff within his right? Unless it's the direct subject of the subpoena, which again we'll see if that's the allegation in here. But there's a lot of footage from different places of Mar-a-Lago, and I don't know exactly how they match up. They're going to have to prove that case.
And shows, just how much evidence there is, but also I think is going to put enormous pressure on this newly indicted De Oliveira to cooperate, as well as on Nauta to cooperate. And I wouldn't be surprised to see one or both of them ultimately decide it's in their best interest to do so.
There you go. They're going to try to get people to flip, right? They prosecute people to turn them. Whether Trump is guilty or not, you just threaten both of those other people with 40 years in prison. You're going to go to prison for 40 years if you don't say that Trump told you to do that thing. And they go, what? The amount of pressure that comes down to bear upon you is a lot. Now, hopefully they have the fortitude to weigh this out. And if Donald Trump, or when Donald Trump wins again, then he can pardon this whole thing and make it go away. But here's the usual suspect, Christie, right? These people are so excited, so gleeful about Trump being taken out. Either there's enough pressure brought by the DOJ to flip his own employees, his teammates, or a federal judge holds him in custody.
I looked at that superseding indictment yesterday, and it tells me one very clear thing. They have a cooperating witness, at least one, maybe two, from inside the Trump organization.
Wow, you mean like Trump employee 3 or 5? Great analysis, Chris.
That are cooperating and providing them with information that is in the indictment against the former president.
Yeah.
And so this is, again,
we read it too.
Things that he brought on himself. And I think what our voters need to begin to think about is we have a front runner right now who, when he gets on the stage for the Fox News debate on August 23rd, will be out on bail in at least 2 different jurisdictions, if not 3, between now and then. How are we going to beat the Democrats with a candidate who is going to be out on bail, facing numerous self-inflicted wounds in courtrooms across this country? No one else wants to talk about that in the race because they're all afraid of Donald Trump. I've known him for 22 years. I'm never going to be afraid to tell the truth, Neil. And what I just said is the truth.
All right, Chris. All right, so that's Chris Christie. Now, presidential candidate Ron DeSantis went on the Megyn Kelly show. And Megyn Kelly clipped this one out for us to enjoy on the X and says, hey, Ron, you've said Trump should have done more on January 6th. And we've heard that argument before, haven't we? Oh, yeah. from Liz Cheney. She said Trump was just sitting around on his butt watching Fox News. And so did Nancy Pelosi. That was her argument too. She said Trump was sitting around on his big fat butt, and that's why she had to call General Milley and try to get him to do something. And they needed to invoke the 25th Amendment because nothing was being done. And that Trump should have gone out there and said, "Halt, America! You're right, MSNBC. The election was fair. Stop these riots." Trump not doing what Liz Cheney wanted Trump to do would be negligent. And not just negligent, but grossly negligent, such that it constitutes reckless conduct, which is the sufficient mental state for mens rea to create criminal intent that allows criminal charges to be brought. Okay, it's a long line of connecting the two. But by saying that he should have done something that he didn't do, if you're a doctor operating on somebody's brain and you're supposed to do something and you don't do that thing, that's medical malpractice, right? And you're going to get in trouble for that. They're saying that Trump should have met a certain standard of conduct. And that by itself is what amounts to insurrection and leading to criminal conduct. So Megyn Kelly asks him about that. Very similar argument. You've said Trump should have done more on January 6th. Like what? Here's what Ron says.
You said Trump should have done more on January 6th. Like what?
I think it's been well documented, kind of his conduct when it first started, how he sat there, could have obviously leaned in harder. I think, even his own kids were texting saying, he needs to do more, he needs to do more. Is that criminal, though? That's the thing when you talk about a grand jury and a potential criminal indictment.
Well, that's what they're trying to do there, Ron. They're going to take that to criminal. And look at Megyn Kelly. She knows what she's doing right here, doesn't she? So Megyn Kelly dropped that one out, put it out on display. If you want to watch the full thing, make sure you're following Megyn Kelly. It's primary season, my friends. It's turning into a blood sport out there. We've got Tim Scott's hitting Ron DeSantis hitting Trump. We've got Vivek's hitting everybody. It's just turning into a blood sport. So we know that he is going to be indicted. It's going to happen any minute now. I was actually expecting it this week. That didn't happen. So surely next week we'll get it. Jack Smith is racing against the clock. Got to get his indictment in before the biggest Fannie Willis, the biggest Fannie in all of Georgia, gets hers in. And of course, we are going to continue to cover this and be defending this unjust indictment for the foreseeable future, my friends. And thank you for subscribing.